Hey there, listener. Welcome to the Deep Share Podcast. I'm your host, Andy Rouse, and for the last couple of decades, I've slowly been opening my eyes to a very different world than the one I grew up hearing about. And the more conversations I have with interesting people, the more mystifying this world becomes. So without further ado, let's get deep.
We've got science to celebrate! Demons bliss out! After Black Hippie, come on!
There is rebellion in the wind. It will be crushed.
Everything I've said is true. It's real.
Dinosaur fossils? God put those here to test our faith.
A damn lie. I saw them with my own eye.
Did IQs just drop sharply while I was away?
We did illusions, man. None of it is true.
I'm not insane.
This is mass madness, you maniac. In God's name, you people are the real thing. We are the illusion.
That was probably the best shit you're gonna get all day, dude.
Right? And now it's gone forever.
Gone forever.
But nothing stays. No, I've been saying that too lately because I watched an episode of Ancient Civilizations the other night, and it's like the serious take. Instead of like ancient aliens, it's like this is like what we really think is going on in the ancient past and stuff like that. Graham Hancock and like bunch of good researchers on there.
Oh, is it on Gaia?
It is. It is
Okay.
on Gaia.
Yeah.
And anyway, they had an episode just recently where they started talking about fucking Enki being Osiris and being Jesus, and I'm just like, holy shit!
Yeah.
I'm like, this is everything that Kevin and I were like bouncing back and forth.
Yeah.
And like, I know it had kind of been like, you know, rumored and written about here and there, but like this was just the way they presented it was so intense because we've made discoveries like in the Osirene in Egypt in 2016, and they've been kind of like newly deciphering stuff. So like they're getting more confirmation of what kind of the occult esoteric groups have kind of been saying about these characters for a long time, which is kind of nuts.
Well, I mean, like you look at I guess, you know, I'd say Neville's take on the Bible kind of alludes to the fact that it's all just parables. It's all just, you know, like in modern parlance, we talk in psychology, whereas like back then they didn't have that system. So they would just, I don't know, like use symbolism because I guess, well, to the Eastern mind, it's more apparent.
Yeah, it must have been just from different beginnings. You know, you have to start in a different place to understand the world in a completely different direction than we went. Like, I think that's the reason why it's so lost on us is because it's almost like that is the alien. You know, like the ancient past is so bizarre to us because they literally thought about reality in a different way, it seems. They thought about it more symbolically than anything.
Well, I you know, I think that maybe that's why I am somewhat different, because I try to take everything from that perspective, and I've had people tell me, "Oh, you're crazy. You can't think like that."
Symbolically,
but,
yeah.
Well, yeah, well, just like from a I'm an eternal being riding in a meat suit, like that, like as a requisite for all current transmissions. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
like,
exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah, I feel like when you do it that way, when you look outwardly that way, things seem to line up. And that whole idea of spiritual principles never being at odds.
Right.
They're one after another after another.
Right.
They come in the form of synchronicities or
Right.
good omens or good things happening.
Right.
Or bad sometimes in some cases. Like
Sure.
you said, you gave me
Yeah.
a great example.
Yeah,
Could you
dude.
tell that
Oh, my
again?
God.
That was awesome.
So I was at work. I went out to my car, went and got lunch. When I came back, somebody had taken my parking spot. And I was like, oh, great. So I had to park around the back side of the building, had to walk a little farther, whatever. In my head, like, I knew who took my parking spot. And I was like, oh, I should just let the air out of their tires. Like, it was just a passing thought. And then 2 days later, I had a flat tire. Like not they were brand new tires, like literally just full puncture. Like not even like get to a gas station and fill it up. I did that and like it didn't matter. Like the hole was so bad. Like as I was filling it, it was emptying.
That's unreal.
But it made me go, careful what you're thinking.
Right. And you've had opposite experiences too. You've had great experiences with, going out of your way to do something nice and coming right back.
Right back. Yeah.
And it seems so anecdotal to so many people who are just frustrated all the time. So they don't, like, I personally remember first kind of hearing about these kind of things and listening to friends like you take it seriously, like me and my wife, and me going like, yeah, but what? This has always just been anecdotal to me. This is all just a Hallmark card. What? And then suddenly it seems to line up with all these more intriguing, more mysterious kind of things from the past, where like it seems like all these other cultures from the past were operating their lives on these systems, these like spiritual mental systems. I mean, their entire cities that we discover are all built based around like Zodiac. And it's like it was their lives. There was no J.P. Morgan. There was no McDonald's.
Everything's just an exemplification of the
thing.
Yeah, the divine essence is
right.
Like, that's our purpose. That's our everything is laced with divinity. And and I feel like that can be easily written off in the contemporary world, and it's been that way for a long time. I talked to my friend Eric about this, how I feel like a major misconception that goes on just throughout the world is the idea that people 6,000 years ago were way dumber than us and had smaller brains. Right.
And that's why they can easily justify saying, oh yeah, this is why they were so much more spiritual, so much more heavy on the gods did this, and because they didn't understand, they weren't as bright as, they weren't as intelligent. So that's why we can understand why their entire culture was worshiping the divine part of it, and that's how it seems to be written off to the majority, that they were dumber than us. That's why they thought that we couldn't be like nothing, like it wasn't nature, it wasn't this. They had no idea, so they blamed it all on gods. That's the old motif. I remember being in like third grade hearing that in school.
Sure. Well, like, I mean, I look at it like, if you take it from a Yuga context, right? And if like, in like the Kali Yuga in the darker times, it was much more challenging to come in contact, like on a personal aspect, with that divine nature. Then you needed a person whose entire upbringing was to become a god king, to live in that state, to also keep away, like there's that partition between noble and serf or commoner, that like, because you could taint them. And it would have a ramification, right? So like if you like living in this like full manifestation, every thought matters type of aspect, and then you have somebody who comes in who lives in lack and is, then all of a sudden the whole country is descending, and it's like this rapid decline.
Doubt enters the soul or something, or the ego suddenly falls into the game again. Right.
Sure.
And that's why, it's always the motif of disappearing into the mountains with the monks or the llamas. Like, you have to go away. You always have to go away. Like the Native American, to become a man in some cultures in the First Nations, it was to, when you were 14 or whatever, 12, I don't know, disappear into the woods by yourself with, your hatchet and whatever.
Survive.
Survive. And, it always seems, no matter how you get to, like, say, a more spiritual or higher consciousness side of yourself, it always comes from some form of turmoil, it seems. Like, you don't necessarily get gifted a Ferrari and have a spiritual experience. It's more like the Ferrari hits you. It doesn't have to be that vicious. But
I would look at it as, like, it's you need to go out away from everyone so that you can realize who you are. and who you are is that I am.
Right.
Like that
deep
well,
down.
that divine presence in physical form, right? And like I think nowadays we don't have that, like Western culture, we don't have that initiation ritual unless you're like part of, you know, certain groups, certain esoteric circles.
Right.
So instead we find it in like in a psychedelic experience, in like a like artistic expression, or like
meditation.
Yes, meditation. But I mean, that's then borrowing from an older tradition.
It is.
So
yeah, Western. You're right. Going right back to the East for the most part, and it's weird too because like it is filtering or not filtering, like a waterfall into the West right now. All the meditation and this and that. It's, I mean, Sadhguru is like a trending guy on YouTube, and it's like, all right, whatever. But like, I worry that sometimes. So often everything good gets co-opted, and not to go down the darker paths necessarily, trying to stay light and love in this episode, but it can get co-opted. And I wonder, I think you and I were talking about this like months ago, how I find a lot of the meditation apps that that are really popular and people are gravitating towards, in essence, it can be good to take 5-10 minutes out of your day and take a breath of fresh air by a tree, but I feel as though the practices that my wife and you specifically, the two of you, have taught me about throughout your journeys recently, there is a very crucial aspect to it that is from that very old, very esoteric, traditional part of it that isn't just taking a few minutes to breathe near a tree. Like, that can be good, but it feels like it's kind of being popularized as just a fluff thing, like take a minute kind of thing. You know, like people are meditating great, but I just worry. I worry that like what the real goal of meditation at least used to be, and the only reason why we know about it still, is to get to that divine higher place, to come to that realization, to be able to come back from it and live in that wisdom, you know. And you find that idea in the psychedelic experience, how practitioners will, you know, do it every 6 months or every year or whatever to return to that state, to learn something new and come back. And it just, I wonder if standing near a tree and breathing for 5 minutes without actual legit meditation training from some of these older traditions is really doing the trick for anybody.
Oh, I guess I could see that. Like, yeah, because I mean, if you're just standing next to a tree and your brain is running 1,000 miles an hour, screaming at you, and you're just like, "I'm doing good.
I'm breathing.
Yeah, listen to me." Yeah,
self-grandization.
Yeah, so it's like, I understand what you're saying there, but I think that any small aspect of like self-reflection is positive.
It's all positive.
It's all positive. And at the same time, like, I've also like come to a place where there's been a switch in my head where I'm, instead of seeing things from like these people, those people type of thing, I'm coming to that place where it's all so perfect.
That's so that one quote.
It's don't you see how like we're all just the thing.
We're all just the thing, and we're all doing it.
We're all doing it, and we're all playing our parts.
And we're all supposed to be doing it,
right? Because
if you don't do it,
because in essence, like that state where we come to the realization that we are simultaneously alone but surrounded.
Yeah.
Like that, the two playing as the one.
The paradox.
Yeah, like the
thing.
the imaginal interplay of some divine being.
Right.
Right? It's like
the constant it's like I heard a long time ago, and I only heard it once, just from a friend, and I'm not sure if he came up with it or if it's actually a motif that they've talked about in history, that the yin yang can be seen as two fish or one fish chasing its own tail, and wondering if the other one exists.
Oh, okay.
You know what I mean?
I get what you're saying.
And I remember hearing that, and I believe it was a time where my friend and I were on a heavy dose of LSD.
No
I
doubt.
believe that might have been a situation.
Of
And
course.
I remember feeling that way. So and that quote really bringing me home, because like it's like there were two sides of myself in that specific psychedelic experience, where I was constantly going back and forth between optimistic and spiritual and doubtful. Like it was almost like the ego and my true self were literally having a battle royale.
The shadow and
The shadow and the self.
They constantly pull away from each other.
Just going like this,
But
and I was
the closer the light gets, the less the shadow is.
Yes,
So it's just like you have this weird actual physics example.
jeez, physics example right there.
Yeah, well, yeah, because like the refraction and reflections of light are all you can
Yes.
diagram them out, and they all like kind of flow together. But yeah, man.
I'm not sure where I was going with that specifically, but like
No, like I totally hear you. Like it's kind of
it was like the self existing and not existing at the same time.
well, it's
if that makes any sense.
It's the pendulum.
Yes.
You could be one side or the other, or you can be the fulcrum.
Right. Or you can be the
closer-
one observing the pendulum.
Well, that's what I'm saying. Like as you rise on the pendulum, you slowly at some point stop the back and forth and just see it's going.
And you see that this is good.
It
It just is.
it is. It is.
And it's weird that, I mean, I wonder how many, I don't know how broad these thoughts are in conversations around the world right now, but I'd say I'm hoping they're more frequent than fewer. I just feel like over the past year or so, I think I've told you this, I always seem to like, anytime my ego tries to think that I'm special, I always end up finding like 10 other people that are going through the exact same thing as I am,
sure,
or something like that.
sure.
And it always brings you back down to ground level. And I just feel like if I've been going through this whole like almost like a reawakening,
Sure.
I feel like it's got to be happening out there more. It always seems to follow that way. Just like I and you and you and you and you brought psychedelics into the legal world over the past 10, 15 years.
yeah,
We've
sure.
been doing that. You're welcome, world, with our thoughts, right?
Okay.
The more energy we put into I've been thinking that shit for a long time, and it was like when it started to happen, I was like, this is happening. Yeah, it's got to happen. It's just got to unravel this way.
Well, like there's also that aspect of like I tend to be a very critical person. I don't know about anybody else, but I tend to be heavily critical, and like I have to check myself and like come to the realization like, oh yeah, no, like it's all, everybody's acting in their best intent, right? Like some people are maybe doing what appears to be evil in the world, but they're doing it from a place that is in their part. They are playing the divine role the way that they want. They see fit, right? And it doesn't matter, my opinion.
Right.
So we got to come around and start to view everything as, oh, this is just,
It's play.
yeah. Like, I mean, Ram Dass talking about getting pulled over by the police.
I don't know if I've ever
Oh
heard
man,
that
so
one.
he was like just driving like super slow on the highway, and he gets pulled over by the police, and the cop walks up to his window and he's like, hey, if you're gonna drive this slow, you should drive on an auxiliary road. And Ram Dass takes that second and looks into the guy's face and goes, oh, hello, it's you. You know what I mean? And like, then they have this weird little like, casual jaunt, and he's like, okay, speed up out there or get off this highway, whatever. But it like, it's like when you take the step back and not act reactionarily and just be like, oh, it's another opportunity.
Yeah.
Oh, and like suddenly things unfold. You know what I mean?
Right.
But
it's basically just the old parable of, life is but a dream. Just like let yourself flow down the river.
Right.
Like just no resistance.
Right.
Because resistance is ego.
or is it? I mean, it's...
Well, it depends, right? You can't just flow everywhere. You can't just you could, I guess. Just wrap yourself in a towel and shit yourself into the grave.
Well, I mean, like, I think that there's something to be said about saying yes to everything.
Mm-hmm.
Like, when opportunities come up, like, choosing what is... positive and uplifting in your life, because like I know that I spent years just being like, nope, no, and like I realize now, like taking a look back and like trying to figure out what it is that I want in life and where I want to go in life, and how I've been lukewarm on everything. I haven't been yes or no on 99%. I've just been like,
I've noticed that. Yeah.
I've gotten from it.
What a surprise.
Right.
How about that?
Because if you don't make the decision, if you don't put the intention, then
it's going to be lukewarm.
Oh, it's going to not, there's going to be nothing.
Right.
Right.
I mean, that's kind of like talking about like nihilism almost.
To some extent, sure.
Yeah. And atheism. It's an interesting, almost like a paradigm rather than anything else. Like this whole, at least from my experience growing up, like the past 20 years, I've been heavily influenced by Neil deGrasse Tyson, Carl Sagan, Sam Harris, just to name a few academics. But yeah, that's Richard Dawkins even. I had... I don't know. I went full into it because I specifically rejected the surface level religious stories that were being handed to me.
Oh, no doubt.
And that's why I always think that, if not to go too deep into it, but if there is some sort of they, which actually I'm starting to think that they is just the human ego, like the collective ego.
As above, so below.
As above, so below, right?
Yeah.
So, but the where was I going with that shit? What were we just talking about before that?
Religion.
Yeah, so it's like a twofold conspiracy that the ego is running on us, because part of it is, well, for some people they'll easily buy into it this way and they'll bow down before this, a man like God.
Right.
And then for the rest of them, rock star atheists. We're living in a dead universe. Look no further. Like everything's dead, appreciate how beautiful this physical place is because that's all there is. That's kind of the message of all of our mainstream academic scientists. You look at Neil deGrasse Tyson, right. If we have a spokesperson for quote unquote science, unfortunately, it's just that guy, that one charismatic guy, smart guy, who's preaching how beautiful this dead universe is. And how this is all there is, physical is all there is, the body is all there is, consciousness is local, it's a reaction.
I don't know how you can enter into that space. You know what I mean? Like, be so analytical of the physical realm that we live in and not see it. You know what I mean? Where there's golden spirals everywhere. There's like all of these
I feel like it's either denial or like purposeful, I'm trying to keep my career perhaps.
Maybe, but like there's, I mean, from a mathematics standpoint, you have all of these irrational what's the word? You have irrational I can't think of the name of
Desserts.
Desserts, yeah.
There we go.
Golden Corral.
So you're talking about like the golden ratio, the divine proportion,
Euler's
things like
number,
that. Yes, things that just
pi, So you have these irrational numbers that just they don't have an end. right?
Right.
So they're like, you have the square and the circle, right? The square is always is representative of the the physical realm. The circle is the divine, right? So you have these two things interplaying with each other, and the squaring of the circle, right?
And that's a Freemason idea, isn't it? Or even prior to Freemason?
I mean,
it's really ancient.
Yeah, it's an ancient premise, but like it's done using mathematics, right? Geometry, which and like, what is it? You know what I mean? What are you really doing there? You are trying to express something of the physical world into a divine proportion, right? Okay. Because because pi is this infinite, unending number, right? Yes. So if it is without end, right, then doesn't that purport that this is infinite, that all things are like,
to break that down on kind of a simpler term for some people. Okay. Would you say, so how can we say that? Maybe that if we as human beings, using even this human mind, can consider a concept of infinity, that could be proof enough almost.
Well, yeah.
Because is that what you're talking about? Because you can count a number that goes on and we can witness how far it goes if we want to.
Right. It just keeps going.
Right. So therefore, the knowledge of something like that in our reality, especially when we consider mathematics to be the structure of our physical world.
Sure.
If it goes on forever, what does that say?
Right.
Now, what does it say about us expanding too? The universe is at least the theory, I would say, because of things that you and I have discussed about, bringing Manly P. Hall's theories into things too. I mean, my God, that man. I think it's fun. I mean, not to go too off on a side tangent, but the fact that he's controversial in the conspiracy theory world is really unfortunate, because he talks, you talk about anything esoteric or occult, you slip into this weird subgroup of conspiracy theory that for some reason questions everything except the most popular book on the face of the earth. So I'm not sure why that happens or that exists, but it does. And we throw out the baby with the bathwater entirely in that case, and people like Thoth or Hermes become like these occult demons in people's eyes, rather than these messengers, whether physical or archetypal or God knows where it's going with the knowledge that's coming out now. But clearly we're beating around the same bush as all the other topics we've been talking about, like psychedelics and meditation and things like that, these practices. I can't remember where I started with that, but it might have been a question at some point.
I think it comes down to a more open examination of like spirituality, of like these traditional religions, which are over and over, like they're based on this person having a huge realization, right? And then everybody around them being like, I get it, and then they write books to complement it, and they're like, and like that person's gone because they've slipped this this meat suit existence. And then they're just like, the people who are around them were like, listen, I knew the prophet, okay? I knew the prophet. Let me tell you what he meant by this. Yeah. But like at the same time, you look at like the Bible and the apostles, right? Mm-hmm. Like
the 12 disciples.
12 disciples, right? So like those guys are just aspects of our human existence. They're not some guys that were just hanging around with some guy. That's not how this goes.
We're not talking about some group of hippies following around a dude with no job. No. But it's so hard, man, because you have scholars on both sides of that. You have scholars on the symbolic side. You have scholars on the physical history side. And I feel as though there's got to be some kind of, there's always a reason why true-hearted minds and souls are going in certain directions. Like people you can rely on for legitimate skepticism where it's needed, fact checking where it's needed, double checking their translation, all, those kind of well-educated, not accepted by the mainstream kind of teachers in two different directions. And it's very frustrating. Like
just turn your ship right back, because there's always been 12.
I know.
There's always been 12. 12 gods, Greek, Roman, 12
Zodiac symbols.
12 Zodiac symbols, 12 Sumerian gods.
Yep. Oh, God.
So,
the archons and Gnosticism.
Everything is based on 12.
But then there's a 7 too in there somewhere, right? The 7 this and the 7 that. And that's more Eastern, or is it connected? It has to be connected, right? It's all connected. I recently had Micah Dank on talking about astrotheology in the Bible specifically.
Oh, sure, okay.
So, he went over the 12 zodiac signs. He read a ton of passages from the Bible, and it's like, oh, wow. And now you see like all of the zodiac signs being spoken about. In each one of these, I learned about Shemin, where we get the word semen from, which is also why they say April showers bring May flowers. It's like a story about God impregnating the earth with life.
Okay.
And it's in Taurus, and it's something about the symbol in Egypt where like the two bull horns around the sun.
Right.
I'm butchering it, but it's incredible how it can.
It's all fertility. Yeah.
What's curious to me is in the southern hemisphere these religions don't exist, and the zodiac would be the opposite or something, right? Because
it's different.
It's different.
They have different constellations.
So that kind of threw a wrench in my brain. Like, is there a representative of this astrological thing that was clearly going on everywhere else? Like in the northern hemisphere, it seems we find pyramids everywhere that line up with solstices, not just Egypt. Like, it seems like these same principles were everywhere, but is it in the East? Is it in the southern hemisphere? Is it in other areas of the world too? Or are these just the most prominent religions, and so we're seeing more of where they came from? I mean, is that a weird one? Like,
I don't know.
Like, what countries what religions would I even give examples for in the southern hemisphere? I can't.
Well, it doesn't matter because those people are subjugated by the North.
Okay, so that's where
forever.
Okay,
forever.
Well, is that connected to the? I saw someone recently make some big video talking about how maps have been distorted for the northern hemisphere to be more prominent. But
I mean, at the same time, like the northern hemisphere definitely has more land mass than the southern hemisphere. Well,
more people, more population, more power.
I mean, like habitable anyway, because Antarctica's there, but that's mostly
controlled by.
Aliens,
no one's allowed to go there or whatever. Well, I don't know. It's all theater, right? It's all fucking theater. Right. Is it all theater? How much of it's theater? I mean, you get so many confirmations recently. It's like, it's just more proof that if it is the human ego or like the collective unconscious that's actually running this conspiracy, then it's just more proof that it's shoving us inward more and more and more.
Oh yeah, no doubt. Well, I mean, like, in some ways, right? We have these golden rules, right? The golden rule pops up over and over again. Doesn't matter what religion it is. You kind of have some tenets, right?
Yeah.
You got some basic understanding, and I think that like those things are kind of were handed down because when you have these sorts of deeper realizations, and you come to realize, oh, we're all one. We're all one. So, like, for me to do too bad to you is to do bad to myself. Mm-hmm. And then on top of that is, like, it goes even deeper, right? When you're, like, taking it from this whole place is malleable context. Mm-hmm. Then when you start living in everyone's doing their best and we are all, like, kind of participating in this creation, then if we all just lift each other up, it becomes this groundswell, and everything just gets better and better, and there's abundance and like love and life for everybody.
Yeah, it's like the happier the people, the richer the world kind of mentality. Yeah. I mean, it seems so simple, and again, it goes back to, it seems like the idea that that's just a Hallmark card has been beaten into society for so long. and even ignoring the idea of the conspiracy side of it altogether. You don't even have to go there because we do it to ourselves.
Yeah.
And anyway, just like Sam Tripoli always says, that conspiracy will lead to spirituality. I mean, that is why he says that, because going through all that blame, all that Clintons or Bushes or Rockefellers or any of these other human beings who are maybe finding out about this shit too before us or something, but they're all just humans too. And you come to that realization that it's too uncanny. This quote unquote conspiracy is far too uncanny to be perpetrated by humans against humans. It doesn't, it seems more like a spiritual thing. It seems more of a collective ego kind of forcing the true self out of us.
It's the breath of the microcosm into the macrocosm, right?
Ooh, I like that.
It's like it's that interplay of like everybody as a collective. Well, I mean, like inside of our heads, we have these like defined structures of like, if you want to go Freudian, ego, whatever. But like, they're all just the same representations that you see in all of these religious parables and everything. And it's this greater dynamic that once you come to that deeper realization, you wouldn't accept the superego writ large as your leader. You go, oh, yeah, no, we've seen this. We know what you do and what you're about, okay? You can just, dial it back,
Right.
Come sit down. I'll show you some shit.
Right. Exactly.
That type of...
show you true power.
Right. I don't know. Like, it's... There's more to this place than I've ever seen in a book. And the more I've tried to pin it down, the more it's become Jell-O.
Exactly.
So it just kind of I had it. It was in the box, and then I ate the box, and now I don't know. It's loose somewhere in here, but I got it. I think I got it.
I got a tracking device on it. Alan Watts would always say that too. He would always talk about trying to grasp water. It's pointless. And
yeah, I mean, I think that there is a greater purpose to everybody.
Yeah.
And sometimes we run away from that purpose for so long.
Mm-hmm.
But it's still there.
Oh, yeah.
It's still there.
It's undying.
Right. Oh, like...
I can almost get behind the idea that it's some out there stuff that I'm finally, like, taking more seriously. It's hard when, like... I came from such a hard-nosed skeptic place at one point that, like, even now when I'm, like, so open to everything, I'm still finding out how hard-nosed I am about certain things, like, that I considered woo-woo that are, it's like, oh, geez, well, shit, maybe that's real too. Fuck. Like, what the hell? So it's just what you're saying about the kind of co-creation of the whole situation. It's weird because you don't have to practice it long before it starts happening. It's really weird.
Yeah. And like it's looking into this sort of stuff has gotten me so conscious of my self-talk in my head.
Oh,
and
that's good.
I think that like that, the going away from society and like kind of holding yourself off is like, entering the crucible to distill down the toxin that you've allowed to populate your mind. Mm-hmm. So like, even if it's 20 minutes a day where you're like taking that step back and saying, I'm not all these things I tell myself, that I am, divinity in flesh. I am this, sleeping God, dreaming reality.
Yeah.
Right? Like, just you start to, I mean, like, I came to a point where like through meditation, like just coming to a place of forgiveness with like my father, right? Mm-hmm. Super like whatever. And like, I was just like, you know what? I'm just going to forgive him. I'm going to let it all go. Well, all the shit, whatever it was, it's good. You know what? Because he's just a person. He's just, living the best life that he can with the terrible stories that were implanted in him, right?
Yeah.
And
Boom.
And as soon as I did that, everything changed. The reoccurring theme in my life of the unsatisfied boss vaporized, gone, replaced by a person who was totally accepting, totally respected me. Oh, it was that easy. This reoccurring stumbling block that I had tripped over and over again. As soon as I was like, oh, this is a work in me. Once I did that, then it, and every lesson in Buddhism and story in Hinduism, it's like this weird I'm gonna do it. I'm gonna pray for you, and then you're like, wait, did I just pray for myself? Did I just do that and then this happened?
And then
what? Oh my God! It's everything's like, oh, you know what? I'm gonna be the best at this by being not myself. Everything is gonna be just decreasing self. No more ego. Just down I go. You know why? Because I'm in it for everybody else and not myself. Wait a second. Did my ego just get killed? Wait. Oh.
But then we also talk about, too often, don't get caught, wearing the badge of ego to decorate your soul. The whole oh yeah, I'm in it for the cessation of all suffering for all mankind. What about you?
Yeah. The cessation of suffering for all beings. What are you about?
Yeah. Me.
Nope. Right.
Unfortunately, that comes in a lot of forms. And a lot of times it's totally innocent. It's just natural, and you got to beat it back down. And that's where we go back into how often we're hearing how successful it is to do these practices on a meditation on daily, weekly, whatever. People are doing it more and more, and it seems to be increasing these conversations. I'm hearing them in so many different places. It's just I'm seeing again back to a previous conversation I had talking about coming to a crescendo of some kind, and I don't think we're gonna come to a necessarily McKenna talked about a singularity, or I don't know about that, because it feels like if it's endless, we talk about the math is endless. If you look at that as a geometric pattern that you could watch unfold, it's just constantly unfolding. It's especially since we have Michael Talbot writing a book called The Holographic Universe.
I just sent that right into your head. I was just thinking that. I was like, yeah, this is the implicate explicit order all day.
Yeah, this is what we need to hear right now. I mean, it does feel that way. It just feels like it would be endless, completely endless, an endless unfolding if we could watch it. I don't know. It's just beautiful.
Well, I mean, you look at the deeper nature of all physicality, right? You look at leaves under a microscope. It's all prismatic crystals, right?
Yeah.
The nature of water is just
and our interaction with it.
Yeah, that's a whole
whole other weird thing.
It's a weird thing.
It is a weird thing. Is it too weird?
Oh, but I mean, at the same time, you look at Vedic culture. Vedic understanding is you don't pass water through 90-degree angles. That breaks it. What are you doing? They take water and they put it in a copper vessel and leave it overnight. It has multitudinous effects on it because the copper's electro active, and so it's antifungal, it's antibacterial, but at the same time it also has this interaction with the water. Does it line it up? Does it change its aspect? Who knows?
And what that immediately puts in my head is the idea of the crystalline structure itself of the water or of the material, because I was just learning about that. We even have them in our heads, in our brains, back here, certain crystalline magnetic type of materials that, and I was watching this whole thing about the shape of a pyramid itself, especially that magnitude, on the Giza Strip.
Yeah.
can like kind of in a way literally those like it's the geometry between the shape of the pyramid and the geometry of the crystals in our brains and things like that that possibly can the energy or something interacts. It's not
frequency.
even it's not even
harmonics.
woo at all.
No.
That's the weird thing. Like you see like fucking geologists and scientists like just talking about this as math and physics. They're just like, yeah, obviously. It's all we've been talking about energy fields for like 100 years.
Yeah.
Where have you people been? You can't see it, so you thought it wasn't real?
Right.
Like it's suddenly kind of bridging a gap, it seems almost, between the woo-woo and just boring science.
Well, like, you know what I mean? Like
like right under our nose the whole time almost.
Right. And there's also like sciences that we've lost. You know what I mean? Like the Austrians used to be able to make glass that would like transmute light in this amazing way. And like
when was that?
Oh my God. So like all the glass in the cathedrals were like is supposed to have been like made with gold and stuff.
Okay.
And like so it would take the light from outside and turn it into this like healing type of thing. I've only heard this places. I haven't actually looked into it, but I mean, Austria and Germany have like this like thing with glass, right?
Do they? Okay.
They totally do. Austrian crystal.
Oh,
you know what I mean? Like
yeah.
there's a lot going on there with that. There's it like kind of it burgeons into like the seven, right? Like the colors, like the chakras, the notes on the scale,
let's talk about that a little bit, because I don't know if people are too familiar with that. This is a perfect bridge into that. This is what I'm talking about. The stuff that at least I used to, and a lot of people in my life have always kind of like considered a little woo-woo, is, chakra systems and stuff like that. But when you think about it in terms like this, how it's energy grids that have always been kind of discussed in mathematics and things like that, and now it's just kind of we're able to observe it more.
It's also laid out like the same way, from red to indigo through your body.
You're saying from the body to what, the microcosm to the macrocosm, from us to the...
Well, it's like from the chakra system, it starts at the base, it's red, which is carnal, right?
Oh, I see
and
what
then
you're saying.
Progresses up your body through the spectrum of colors. So it's orange in your gut, yellow in your chest, green, you know what I mean? And then blue, whatever.
Right. And these are systems that existed long before we knew any of that.
Green is the color of heart, right? It's like this. So, and then you have like, the South Korean flag is the blue and the red, yin yang. So you have the carnal and the mental.
The third eye
in unison, right? So
again, back to the paradox,
right? Which leads to purple, which is the crown,
right?
And purple is always the color of royalty,
right?
It's like there's like all of this stuff. The expression of music is like always been considered like this almost divine,
heartfelt, creative.
Like it resonates
comes
with people
from elsewhere,
right? There, but like the resonation, right? Like the
hearing that word a lot these days.
It's the interplays of energies, right? And like,
again, back to like probably learned it in like 7th grade science in like one page of one chapter in a book, like certain energy fields that they didn't connect in the textbook to what they should have been connecting for us. That it's us too. It's all connected. Like all these energy grids and energy systems are not some, boring outside thing. It's actually like a kind of a main focus. And that's when we look back at these ancient civilizations, it seems like a lot of these structures, a lot of the researchers now are really digging into, like, there's this guy in, I'm going to forget where he is, what country he was in, but he made this whole, tons of money, dumped tons of money into it, made all these pyramids, and started reading the energy levels inside and outside pyramids and stuff like that, and seeing major spikes, and people were sleeping inside them and outside them, and when they were sleeping outside of them, the spike in energy in them was massive, and they were filled with energy and all this stuff. And they just kind of extrapolated that to the Giza Strip, saying this whole area
Right.
Like this whole culture was focused on this, like you said, this divine energy.
Right. Yeah.
And it doesn't have to necessarily be a woo-woo thing way out in left field to be divine. I think using the word that way is just a choice, perhaps.
Well, when you live in a culture and a society that has like typified that, right? Had like made that like the cornerstone.
Right.
Then you everything that you do is then based around that.
Right.
You know what I mean? Like, because if that's you realize that that's your the purpose of your life, then it bleeds out.
Right.
Right. And then like I've had this argument with people like, talking about the mathematics of the pyramid, like, and then being like, oh, it's just a happenstance. It's just coincidence. I'm like, yeah, because that's what we do. When we build a giant multi-trillion-dollar building, right?
Yeah.
Or like, multi-billion-dollar building, we're just like, just throw the bathroom wherever.
Right. Yeah. Totally.
We'll just put that over there. Elevators wherever you want. Zigzag them through the whole thing.
Right.
Because that makes sense.
What, 48 feet? No, make sure it's 48 and 9/10
Right.
exactly on all sides.
Right. Right. Let's go to umpteen decimal points and make sure it's the speed of light. Okay? That's what I want.
Yeah, let's go over that for some people.
Oh my God.
Because I can't remember all of them, but I know you can rattle quite a few little bullet points off with that shit.
I mean, the revelations of the pyramids is like a mind-blowing thing.
Free documentary on YouTube.
Yeah, but it also like it points to the fact that we knew the meter and the foot same time. That these were not like, I'm just going to come up with some shit and like call it this. No, this is a
You're talking about the measurements of the pyramids.
Yeah, the measurements of the pyramids are so like the the meter is derived from the circumference of the equator, and feet is derived from the polar diameter of the Earth.
Of the Earth.
Of the Earth, right.
And
divided by another divine number. It's like 432,000.
Yeah, I think it's something like that, or 426 or something.
No,
like
it's 432. 432.
And wait, isn't 432
432 is the frequency of magnetism? Yeah.
And isn't that the frequency that like we're supposed to be
it's also
receiving?
Fibonacci number.
Oh, Jesus, see, it's all just connected.
There's too much to it. You know what I mean? Like I like, from an engineering standpoint, I ask people this all the time. What do you have that would last 100 years if you just dropped it on the ground and left it there? Mm-hmm. And the answer is nothing.
Yeah.
Nothing.
Not much at all.
No. Like,
and then you got this thing that
could
possibly be around for
12,000 years.
12,000 years. Yeah, that's the only thing I recognize.
Yeah.
Yep.
12,000 plus years.
Yep, 12,000 plus.
So, and then it's all made with internal structures exactly precise to specific harmonics and dimensions.
Yeah,
what
the hell?
Sure.
That's not a... Yeah, and how many coincidences are you willing to accept? Yeah.
I just made the biggest building, whatever.
Here's the problem when if you do get there with someone in a conversation, like, come on, man, how many coincidences are you willing to believe? They'll go, all right, fine. Well, what does it mean then?
Right.
I'm
not smart enough to know that.
Listen,
otherwise, I'd be making these things left
myself.
and right. Yeah.
I've been making them in my basement. I'd be making them on my roof. I'd be making them on my front lawn. I'd be making pyramids. We should be making pyramids. I don't know.
Sounds like a big undertaking.
You know, I can't even...
Do you even know how to use a chisel?
I mean, kinda. Dude, I was looking up trying to find like even just some pyramid shapes for my son to make in the sand instead of typical sand castles.
Okay.
Don't even exist.
No.
I'm like, are you serious? I can't even find a pyramid to put in the sand. I can't make that shit.
It'd be pretty stable.
Yeah, it'd be pretty good.
You need a 3D printer.
Well, hey man, it's been real talking to you. I really appreciate you coming by and sharing all this. Kevin and I go way back, and we've been having these crazy conversations for a long time, but I'm really glad that we got through this whole thing. We didn't mention reptile people. We didn't mention like any sort of interplanetary species controlling anything.
That's because I work for them. I can't talk about
right,
them.
that's right. Yeah, I forgot about that.
It's in my contract.
Right. Dun, dun, dun. But, I would tell everybody where to find Kevin, but he doesn't want to be found, and I like that. I like that. I think that's leading by example.
As little as possible.
Yes. Kill that self.
Right.
Drive that ego down.
Hide away.
Yeah. Go within. But, thanks, everybody, and tune in next time. Take it easy.
Thanks for listening to this episode of the Deep Share Podcast. If you want to hear more, then hit that subscribe button. Follow me on all the social places. And remember, think for yourself, but don't always believe what you think. Till next time.
Human sacrifice, dogs and cats living together, that's hysteria. Enough, I get the point.
You have meddled with the primal forces of nature. And you will atone.
What do we know? What do we know? If I know what we know, then I can tell you what we know, and if someone else knows, okay? I mean...